everyone, my name is Anthony. Welcome to my channel and to my first ever YouTube album review. So I love music and I love talking about music, but I've never done it in this format before, so please bear with me if there are lighting or sound issues. I'm still figuring out my setup as I go. And the album I'm going to be looking at today is Valesa Chapter 1 Velvet Prison by Major Parkinson. And this album came out in early October of this year, 2022, though I was able to first listen to it in mid-September through their Kickstarter, so I've had a lot of time to collect the thoughts I'm about to share with you today. So if you're unfamiliar with Major Parkinson, they're a Norwegian group which has over the years evolved from offbeat rock band into genre-bending, experimental art, prog, whatever they want to be really. I admittedly don't really travel in progressive rock circles the same way that I know many other fans do, and I was only properly introduced to their music in late 2020, but they very quickly became one of my favorite bands when I started listening to them. Because I've always liked big ideas and big concepts in music, they give me plenty of that, and I have a lot of appreciation for frontman Jonah both for his distinctive voice and for his very creative and profound lyrics. So one thing that is kind of impossible to avoid when talking about Valesa Chapter 1 is that it is a big departure in sound from Major Parkinson's past releases. They've gone in many diverse directions in the past, but 80s flavored synth pop was not one of them until now. Now personally, I like a fair amount of pop and electronic music, I always have, so that part didn't scare me as much as maybe it did some fans. If anything made me slightly apprehensive at first, it's that, as you're likely aware, nostalgia is really having a moment in popular culture right now. It's not a new phenomenon by any means, but it's become inescapable as we trudge through the unrelenting, boring 20s because of two things. One, a lot of us are looking for a sense of comfort and safety, and two, we would rather be anywhere but here. So Hollywood, the big record labels, etc., they know things that are already familiar to us and remind us of other times we'll sell, so they recycle and repackage everything from the good old days they can get their hands on. As much as I do love Major Parkinson, when I first found out they were releasing an 80s influenced album, I worried, is this going to be nostalgia bait? And the answer is no, fortunately. Valesa is absolutely as original as anything in Major Parkinson's back catalog, and while it makes heavy use of 80s sounds and allusions to the decade, the lyrics are often not so much nostalgic as they are a case study of nostalgia itself. The what, the how, the why of it all, the things that drive us to wish we were in another time, and what happens when the past you want to return to is the same past you're trying to escape from. It's a nuanced depiction that doesn't try to say nostalgia good or nostalgia bad, and I do appreciate that. I won't lead you on anymore. I really love this album. So, the album is 1 hour of music, then roughly in two halves, with the first half being Goodbye Blue Monday through Jonah, and the second half being from Velvet Moon to Heroes. Now, I'm not sure if it's officially meant to follow a narrative, but I think it's very easy to read a narrative in it, with the viewpoint character who tries to cope with the loss of a dear friend and avoids the pain in his life in various ways. I'm going to go through the album track by track and give my thoughts on each one, and because this is a concept record with strong thematic threads running through it, I am going to be a huge nerd and try to analyze those themes as I go, and give my personal reading of the narrative and each song's meaning. So a few disclaimers before I do that. I'm not going to be getting too deep into the musical influences on each track because while I am aware of many of the artists that influence this record, I don't know most of their work well enough to feel confident saying, oh, this part sounds just like, so I'll leave that up to the people who are familiar with said artists, and I'll stick to discussing my personal favorite aspects of each song and how they make me feel. And me saying I interpret a song a certain way doesn't mean there isn't room for other interpretations. I do welcome you to leave yours below if we disagree, because I'd love to hear it. Alright, so let's get started. So we begin with the instrumental track, Goodbye Blue Monday. It has several sound effects that create a certain atmosphere, starting with a beeping alarm clock, then what sounds like a crackling fireplace, a TV set to a shopping channel, and the clattering of dishes. We hear a melody that will later become the tune to the track Velvet Moon, before the TV cuts off and we're treated to the noisy crescendo of an orchestra warming off, before that also cuts off just as abruptly. And it feels like a peek into someone's life, though what kind of life won't be clear until later on. The next track, Behind the Next Door, cold opens with the lyrics, "You drink too much, but you can't ease the tension, and you drive too fast, but you can't stop the engine." If we consider this album to be following a narrative, this would be the introduction to our central character, And the lyrics continue describing the life of this person who feels lonely and helpless and his wishes to start a new life. Set to a simple piano track at first and slowly adding in strings and synths as it gets more emotional. And after the second chorus, the song just explodes into the grand, heartfelt bridge accompanied by a cheering crowd. And it's addressed to someone who the narrator misses, who's implied to be long gone by now. But despite this, it feels triumphant, and it seems that this person and the desire to have them here again, even if only in memory, is the driving force as he moves into this new life. It is a very moving song, and it ends on a hopeful note as our narrator promises to start again. Saturday Night also uses that theme of new beginnings. Our narrator almost sounds like he's emerging from a void in my head as he questions who he is, why he's here, and what's happening around him. And even throughout all this uncertainty, he still knows that he wants to be alive and be close to someone more than anything. And there's some interesting birth-death and life-death juxtaposition in the lyrics here, I believe. Like, you're an embryo while other animals are decaying, and the stars are withering, but there's still light in your eyes. And you could be dead and in the ground if things were different, but you're here and you're breathing, and that fuels the urge to be alive right here in this moment. And it's clear why this was the first single from the album, because it's a really stunningly produced synth-pop song with sparkling highs and almost menacing lows that perfectly uses the vocals of both Jon and violinist Claudia Cox, who is credited here as Periwinkle. I get lost in this song's world so easily. It's very beautiful. Ride in the Whirlwind is an interlude track, an instrumental piano piece that mainly serves as a lead into the next song. Now, one criticism I've seen directed at Valesa is that there are too many interlude tracks, or just short tracks in general. I don't fully agree, because I think many of the short tracks are very good and fine as they are, but admittedly I could take or leave Ride in the Whirlwind. It sounds nice, but it's kind of just there, you know what I mean? It provides a pleasant little intro to the next song, but there's not really much else to say about it. Now, fortunately, not having much to say is not a problem I'll have with the next song, Live Forever, which is absolutely bursting with things to unpack. Musically, it's a good example of the Major Parkinson tendency to write songs with varying time signatures or unusual time signatures, but making it flow so well that you might not notice it until you try to count it out, which I will do because I was a band kid in high school. It's prog in the unusual structure, but pop in the hooks and overall sound, and they blend the two sides especially well here, like the whole album, but I think this is one of the best representations of it. Lyrically, it's filled with several glimpses of the past, and it carries on the theme of missing someone, and this time the person gets a name, Jonah. It contrasts all these joyous and innocent memories with feelings of sadness and references to war, the Unabomber, the murder of John Lennon. There's just, like I told you, there's a lot to unpack here. But all in all, it feels like a celebratory ode to the complicated but often joyful nature of being alive, complete with the cheering crowd from behind the next door returning in the background of the bridge. So, personally, I see a few different meanings to the title reflected in the lyrics. One, when you're young and you're carefree, you might not think about death or the fact that one day this moment you're in will be gone, so you feel like you're going to live forever. And when you hold the memory of someone in your mind, also, that person lives forever in that memory. So the title and the song play with the idea of both wanting to hold on to your youth and wanting someone else to stay young. So in a way, you both stay in a time before you grew up and lost your sense of innocence and idealism. As we transition into the next track, Sadlands, we hear cheers and applause again and begin a short but very emotionally raw piano ballad that uses the metaphor of a car crash to describe the pain of losing someone. And while there was hope to be found in earlier songs and lines like, "Tonight you're alive when you sing to me," and "You're gonna live forever," this song is where I feel the hope runs out and the things that once brought our narrator comfort are no longer working. Quote, "I'm listening to the radio, more than a feeling, but I can't feel a thing, just carry me home." It's a song that says a lot in a short amount of time, and it leaves the final words to echo in our heads far away from the noise of the crowd. I personally think the presence of the cheering and applause in several songs in the album's first half is meant to make us ask, how much of this has just been a performance? What's real and what's just hiding the pain? I can't say for sure, but the fact that Sadlands is the last time the crowd appears in the album, I think it suggests something, at least. Intermezzo is another instrumental interlude comprised of synths, the sounds of rushing cars, and voices speaking in what I think is Italian, and what I think is commentary on a race, like judging by the cars rushing past. If anyone knows what they're saying, let me know. I am quite curious. It's another track where there's not much to comment on, and again, I'm not against this album's interludes. They have a lot of thought and put into them compared to some other interlude-heavy albums I've experienced. I wish I had more to say about them. Hey band, I know you wanted to include these to give the longer songs some room to breathe, but did you ever consider they might make parts of my review less interesting? Much to think about. And that brings us to what I consider the album's turning point, the song Jonah. There's something about it, the echoing percussion, the accompanying gospel choir, the outpouring of deep emotions in the lyrics that makes this song feel so physically grand in scope and impossible to contain. And this song is where we finally get to the heart of the grief at the center of the album's first half, the loss of a close friend named Jonah, who is implied to have died young as a soldier. The lyrics pair surreal imagery like, I dreamt I was a beautiful boy, sleeping in the womb of an animal, with hard-hitting cries of sorrow like, in heaven there was nothing at all, just a cauliflower shade of an atom bomb. Now I'm fumbling away in the dark by the river. It cuts deep, and Jan's vocals are obviously superb here and extremely emotionally affecting, but the choir really makes this song in my opinion, and I love the fact that we can hear them continue to sing as our protagonist walks away and disappears into the rainy night. I think that's a really beautiful effect there. And more things I want to mention while we're here. Jonah takes the line, he was the best friend you ever had from Live Forever, and turns it into, he was the best friend I ever had. It's a small change, but one that reflects the shift from performance to honesty marked by Sadlands. And a friend of mine, the same friend that introduced me to this band actually, but he pointed out to me that the loss of Jonah in this album is not just about Jonah the person, but everything he represents. In a sense, freedom and hope for the future. And without him, the narrator feels just that much more uncertain about whether he'll ever get these things back. Velvet Moon is a bridge between Jonah and the more experimental second half of Valesa Chapter 1, the calm both before and after the storm, if you will. It's a quiet piano and synth track where our narrator is being driven away in the rain, and all he wants is to be taken to a familiar place called the Velvet Moon. He seeks comfort in a conversation with a stranger named Dave, and personally that speaks to a feeling I know well of being alone and feeling like you need someone, just anyone, to fill the silence. It's another short track, right at 2 minutes long, but it fills a valuable space in the album. It's calming, I think it's beautiful. I appreciate the continued use of sound effects to accent these songs where you can actually hear the rain and him getting in and out of the car. Small details, but ones that add a lot of depth to the album. Well, I hope you enjoyed feeling calm, because Irina Margareta is here now to change that. It has a cinematic opening with a repeating flute theme and low synth horns that lead into hard-hitting drums. And in my view, this is the point in the album where a clear storyline becomes harder to discern and the lyrics get a lot more introspective, but right away you get hints of a troubled emotional state in this song. There's descriptions of people shouting your name, sirens in the street, but you can't remember what you've done, and there's just this overwhelming sense of guilt and paranoia without a clear cause. But then there's a choir bursting through to break the tension, and the outro is full of sweeping synths and reverb. There's a lot of really fascinating production decisions here, and lyrical decisions too, because I don't know who else could pull off referencing the Romanian Revolution and 9/11 conspiracy theories in the same verse. And I had never heard of the real Irina Margareta before I heard of this song, but I highly recommend looking her up if you're also unfamiliar, because several lyrics in the song are about her, and it's just a really powerful story. The House is another track that opens with an ominous atmosphere, but this time the song unfolds into wild synth solos and vocal effects, describing a childhood with an alcoholic father and a depressed mother, where our narrator turns to video games and movies with his friends to escape the situation. In some ways, this feels like a callback to early Major Parkinson, despite having a very different sound, like the themes of troubled family life, the theatrical delivery of many of the lyrics. I'm curious if anyone else sees that. I know the subject matter is dark here as well, but parts of how over the top it is make me laugh, honestly. I think they know it's over the top though, and it sounds like everyone is having a lot of fun on this song, especially Claudia's little verse about partying in your oxygen mask and getting drunk in a bomb shelter. I mean, this song is something special. I can't help but love every weird bit of it. The end of the house immediately transitions into the room, and the two songs have some things in common thematically, both exploring the idea of looking back on your childhood, realizing how imperfect it was in hindsight, and how much it still affects you to this day. While the house is on a smaller scale, the room looks more at the state of the world. And while the whole album is full of references to songs and films and key events from recent history, The Room is especially reference heavy in my opinion. The opening lines nod to Hip to Be Square, later sections directly borrow musical elements from Cyndi Lauper and the Buggles, and I didn't know until recently that the China in Your Hand line was also a reference because that song never got big in America. But now I lie awake at night wondering what else I'm missing out on because I was born on the wrong side of the Atlantic. And The Room also touches on the feeling of ubiquitous fear that comes from living through several major historical events, specifically name-dropping Gorbachev, the Wall Street crash, and the Challenger disaster, among others. And seeing as we're all currently living in interesting times, I think ubiquitous fear is a feeling we can all relate to. The Room has a lot of disparate musical ideas that flow together well, even when it feels like they shouldn't, and I think the guest vocals from Lynn Frokadal really stand out here. They're wonderful. It's a song that gives me a lot to think about while I sing along. What follows is an interlude track that's a lot more unsettling than the ones that came before it. Posh-Apocalypse starts with a bunch of chopped up and overlapping samples from makeup commercials over a tumultuous synth line, a synthesized voice asking for the unification of the sky and the earth, then that voice glitching as it repeats the phrase, "Stop explaining," and someone breaks glass in the distance and screams. The combined effect is wonderfully unnerving, and I feel like it represents a breakdown in our protagonist's mental state, which fits perfectly with the song to come. MOMA is barely over 2 minutes long, but it's a real punch in the face of a song with a call and response barrage of art, culture, literature, and the life of one sad, hopeless man that we have come to know very well by now. It's really cool, in my opinion, to hear Jon just lose it and scream on record like the early days of the band, and as always, I love how much his lyrics reward closer inspection as they dive here into a couple famous examples of classic art befitting of the title. And I personally read the museum theme used in this song as a metaphor of pretending your life is perfectly in order, and putting your best parts on display, but keeping your memories behind glass where you can't touch them and they can't touch you. Quote, "Everything is MOMA, everything is right." And it may feel like a safe way to live, but it's not actually living. And once again, I really love the production choices here. It has Claudia's vocals layered over each other and bouncing from ear to ear, and Jon repeating, "Why are you never listening to me?" in the background, and it's a perfect representation of racing thoughts and trying to be heard above the chaos of modern life, and it's such a good outro. I really love it. Next in the tidal wave of musical experimentation that is this album's second half is the final interlude, Lemon Symphony, which has a symphonic, almost 50s movie soundtrack sound paired with harmonized vocals and fast-paced electronic drums. And this is probably my favorite of the album's interludes, because after the absolute mind melt that is the combination of Posh-Apocalypse and MOMA, it feels really uplifting. It's like the sun peeking through the clouds, if only for a moment. We have reached the penultimate track, Fantasia Me Now, and I'm gonna get on a bit of a tangent here because while this is a contender for my favorite song on the album, I know some fans have kind of not known what to make of it due to the strong pop elements, especially the use of autotune. And I want to try to explain why I think that particular element is there. Can't guarantee that I'm right, but I hope I can give a new perspective. I've seen people saying, well, obviously this has to be a joke, and you could certainly make an argument for Fantasia being a parody of a radio-friendly pop song, because that's an idea the band explored in their most recent fundraiser video, Show Me the Money. But while there's merit to that, I think there's more sincerity to this than people realize. The autotune isn't there only because it's unexpected and they want to shock their audience. It serves a purpose in these songs, like in Claudia's verse In the House, which has very bleak lyrics presented as carefree and aspirational. It's despair hiding behind the image of mindless party pop, and the autotune on her voice serves to emphasize that contrast. In returning to Fantasia Me Now, it also tries to sound carefree, but certain little details creep in under the surface in the lyrics to ruin the perfect image. The arcade has shut down, your old friends aren't around either, and you're losing all these memories you want so badly to hold on to. I think if singing about these happy memories sounds artificial, that's the point. It's reflecting the sadness underneath when you're forced to face the fact that you can never really go back. But think about the final repetition of, "Yes, I know, it's alright, we can save it for later," where to me, the autotune almost sounds like someone's voice breaking as tears come to their eyes. There's decades of precedent in music history for using autotune to add layers of emotion to the voice, and while this isn't the place to get into all that, nor am I the person to get into all that, it's not just the "I'm a pop star who can't sing" software is what I'm trying to point out. And And since this is a review written by a 20-something who listens to 100 gecs, and I'm sorry you had to find out this way, gotta point out that Claudia, in her currently unreleased solo work, has been known to take inspiration from hyperpop, which is a genre known for often having exaggerated pop elements and heavy use of vocal modifications. And since she has such a presence on this song, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a bit of that influence was peeking through here. And again, it's probably not a joke. This is Major Parkinson we're talking about after all. There's humor in a lot of what they do. I said myself, like, I don't know how many minutes ago, that the house makes me laugh. But even if that's so, I don't think something being funny and something having meaning are mutually exclusive. As the kids say, not joking or serious, but a secret third thing. Back to my main point, Fantasia Me Now is such a fascinating musical statement to me. It begins with by far the poppiest sound that Major Parkinson has ever given us, and some of their most lighthearted lyrics, but it ends with barely hidden desperation and a chant of "Show me the killer" that turns almost vicious at points. And the space in between is filled with film homages, fabulous trumpet hooks, and vocals from Jan that give me chills. The way it goes from one emotional extreme to another while the bright synth pop carries on, it's like the sound of a party where the dance floor is crumbling underneath your feet. And I know I already gave away a lot of my personal interpretation of this song in the autotune rant, but I still stand by my view that this song is about loneliness at its core. It's desperately grasping for anything that can make you feel the way you did when you were young. It's everything I said way back at the beginning about why we even have nostalgia. We want comfort and safety, and we would rather be anywhere but here. And so am I implying that this song is this album's thesis statement? I'm not implying that, but I think I've passed the limit of how many double negatives you're allowed to use in a review, so I'm going to stop myself there. The final song, Heroes, closes the album on a very enigmatic note. It gives us a piano melody with synth accents and deep bass hits and lyrics about the repetitiveness of everyday life and the pain we face as we push through it, but with a call for us to be heroes despite it. The phrase, "we could be heroes," is of course a nod to the David Bowie song, but it's given a different context here, and the line, "the infinite sadness of courage and kindness," to me feels like a callback to the Irina Margareta line, "it takes courage to be blind and I choose to be kind," and with how often other songs on this album discuss feelings of isolation, that's why I think this song is about surviving and finding connection with others, even when life makes it hard. That's just one possibility, though. I don't know if anyone else feels like this song is slightly harder to get a read on than the rest of the album, but even with that, it's haunting and beautiful, and it ends with the same distant alarm clock that Goodbye Blue Monday opens with. And here we end the journey of Valesa Chapter 1, or perhaps here we also begin it. In conclusion, if it's not already been made clear that I highly recommend this album, I very much do. It takes the things that made Major Parkinson great on their earlier albums and transplants them into a new setting where they work better than I ever could have imagined. And I think there's something here for anyone who appreciates uniqueness in music and likes a little pop with their experimental or vice versa, and I hope more people come to pick up this album with time because I do think it deserves the recognition. I recommend listening to it straight through to get the full experience, but if you just want a taste of the album to figure out if it's for you, my song recommendations are Saturday Night or Live Forever for something both bittersweet and uplifting, Irina Margareta for something more out of the box, or Fantasia Me Now for a beautifully warped pop epic. I'm wishing the band well, and I have very high hopes for the future Chapter 2 when that day comes. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you loved this album, hated it, had a different reading of it, want to tell me what else I should listen to, whatever it is, comment down below. And goodbye, all you generations destroyed by madness. I will hopefully see you again soon.